and we are here at the Union Hotel, just down the road from our Ascot Vale clinic here in beautiful Ascot Vale.
And as you can see, the fairy lights are on. It's now winter, the heaters are on. It's nice.
It is. And being that it's winter, we are in the peak of AFL season. Get off. So, as we're in the peak of AFL season, we are heading into kind of the peak of injury time.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of it, it's getting colder, training's getting harder, and we're starting to see a lot of soft tissue injuries come through the door at the clinic, a lot of hamstrings, a lot of calves, and even yourself, you've had a few issues with injury this year because you've been trying to run and play footy, is that right?
Yes.
Right, so what have you noticed has been the hardest thing balancing both training schedules?
Yeah. So look, the biggest one is we all know that running is very repetitive. So adding the element of change of direction, jumping, falling on the ground, and running being that super repetitive stress, my body wasn't used to it. So adding that extra high load of intensity has led me to some tendon injuries. One in particular, my adductor, which is in the inside of the leg, and it refers into a little bit of the hamstring. So those tendon injuries that just take so long to heal. So that's the biggest one for me. But what I'm finding with most people coming into the clinic is those typical hamstring, those calf, exploding off the ball, picking up the ball, getting pushed, and then tweaking that hamstring. They're the biggest ones we're seeing at the moment, and it doesn't help that it's bloody cold as well.
No, it doesn't help that it's cold. So what do you think, seeing a lot of sports injuries, what do you think is the biggest mistake people make when they find themselves on the other end of a soft tissue injury?
Yeah. So I think the biggest one is recovery is sometimes non-existent, or they will obviously try and go above and beyond because you might be struggling with getting picked in the team, so you train the Tuesday when you probably should have had a lighter night. Or you are doing what I'm doing, where you're doing probably too much and you're probably overloading. So there's two variables that obviously recovery is the big one, and then obviously overtraining is another big one. So I think the best thing is to just find a balance in what works for you. I know for me, it's taking Tuesday off. That's now working for me, and just doing like a lighter run on a Monday or a Wednesday, and then training fully on Thursday, which makes me peak for Saturday rather than kind of like two solid sessions. But I'm over the 30s club, so that works for me. Though you young guys, you should be flying. There's no excuse for you guys.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that we see a lot of, and I know myself having worked in with rugby league before and in the AFL system, a lot of the time there is a big amount of pressure on players to get back within a certain time frame, right? So we kind of say, for example, grade 1 hamstring, that's 4 weeks. 2 to 4 weeks. And that may be the case for someone, but it may not be the case for someone who's not a professional athlete, where they are not just training as a full-time job. So for those kind of people who are maybe receiving a bit of pressure from the coaching staff or the playing group to return from their injury earlier, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Yeah. And it's funny, when you tell someone, say for instance for a hamstring, like you said, 2 to 4 weeks, they're going to go, 2 weeks, done. We're back. And then the biggest thing I'll kind of push, and the initial push is straight into rehab. So for a hamstring, you want to load it. Like you want to load it straight away. Not in loading it in running and jumping, loading it in the sense of, hamstring curls, hamstring bridges, RDLs, those sort of things. So tying that in with their normal work life might be a bit difficult. So that's why it kind of gets that 4 or 5 week mark. But I always say with my patients, 1 extra week with a hammy is probably ideal, because I know most of my patients who are tradies or desk workers, they're probably not doing enough rehab like a Pendlebury's doing at Collingwood, at 39 years old. So I think, sort of seeing the person as it is, and then catering the rehab and expectation based on who they are.
Yeah, the expectation is a big one, I think, because I think people, especially amateur athletes and, kind of weekend warrior athletes, look at a soft tissue injury and go, oh, well, yeah, Scott Pendlebury got back in 3 weeks. Why can't I? And we have to appreciate that the expectation on an elite level athlete that is training and recovering like an athlete day in, day out is very different to someone who has a full-time job with a family, with training twice a week for whatever sport it is they're playing. and then game day. And I think that we need to remember that everybody is different. And like you said, taking that extra week of recovery, if that's what it takes to get you back, you'd rather that than go back early and then ping it again and then you're out. And I don't know if there's any rugby league fans out there, but if anyone watched the Broncos game last night, you would have seen Adam Reynolds went off with a hamstring cramp. But if you watched in the first half, he had a breakaway line break tackle and he got through, and this man has had 2 hamstring injuries in the last 2 years, severe hamstrings. He broke away, and for any other player you'd say, oh, he's going to sprint to the line. You could see him pull up nervous. What if I'm going to tear my hamstring again? And the poor guy was seen at the end having some big stretches from the physio and looks like a severe cramp, but time will tell whether that was just a cramp or whether we're looking at another hamstring injury.
Would be there.
Yeah, so even if it happens to the best of the best, to the cream of the crop, you know, and we wish the best to Adam Reynolds, of course, because he's a fantastic player and we want to see our best players out there. But if you are the type of person who's finding yourself on the end of soft tissue injuries week in, week out, and you just can't seem to get it right, then take the time to recover, do the rehab, like Will said, keep it simple, do the simple stuff really well, and give your body the chance to recover properly so you can return to the sport and feel your best and spend more time out on the track and less time on the sideline.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a nice little summary of footy. You know, I love footy. So, like and subscribe, Alpha Sports Medicine, for more information.
That's it. If you need to find us, you can find us here at Ascot Vale, Newport or Bacchus Marsh if you've got any sporting injuries you need a hand with. Until then, we'll talk to you next time.